a part of what we were doing. I think New York City is probably the most privileged urban city in America. We have over 30,000 units of supportive housing now in this city, not only for people with mental illness, but people who've been homeless, people with other special needs, now turning to families and young adults, people who have experiences in the forensic system. But we have a homeless problem in New York City that is worse than it's ever been. On any given night, we have 40,000 people in our shelter systems, many more thousands of people on the streets. So there's still an overwhelming need for quality housing projects as an answer to homelessness in this city.
I had the enlightening experience of being introduced to a unique culinary program in New York City. It's part of an organization called Project Renewal, and after having visited their kitchen on Manhattan's Lower East Side yesterday, I couldn't think of a bright idea.
Before I got involved in Project Renewal, I was homeless.
I was at the end of my life with nowhere to go, no one to talk to.
You were homeless?
Yes, I was.
I answered an ad in a job posting in 1992 for an instructor in a culinary arts program. And I came to the office, was interviewed by Stephanie Coles. Within 1 minute we hit it off, and she had this idea along with Barry Roth, who's no longer with Project Renewal, has passed away. They had an idea to start a culinary program because they thought there were jobs for people. And we had a city contract, New York City contract, to train women who lived at the Lexington Avenue Women's Shelter. We developed our own curriculum, and we did that program for 3 years. Then we applied for federal money, and it became the program that it now is. It's been a long journey. We don't have federal funding anymore, but we're now a licensed school. We just graduated our 50th class, and we've trained a lot of people and put a lot of people to work.
We're also teaching them the skills of getting along in a place of employment, how to get along with their boss, how to get along with fellow workers, how to come to work on time, how to dress for work.
My biggest challenge was that I had worked in the restaurant business all my life and knew nothing about substance abuse, knew nothing about social work. So I had to kind of learn that by the seat of my pants, and thank God I had Stephanie around. She was fabulous and a great support, as she still is today.
This is the Holland Hotel on 42nd Street, once considered one of the worst welfare hotels in the city, a dumping ground for homeless families and a breeding ground for crimes ranging from drug dealing to prostitution to robbery. Now, after a 7-year vacancy, which saw the city pour more than $25 million into several fumbled renovation plans, the future of the renamed Holland House is looking up. Project Renewal, a not-for-profit organization, bought the hotel from the city in 1993 for $2. The city then loaned the organization $10 million to pay for the current renovation, which will turn the hotel into a 307-unit, single-room occupancy residence for the homeless and people with special needs.
Well, I've been here since the Holland House opened the first summer. I unfortunately was homeless for some 10 months in '95. And I happened to be found by somebody who happened to be a social worker just by mere chance, and would you believe, on Thanksgiving Day of '95, in November.
We acquired the Holland House in '95. It had been a notorious welfare hotel serving residents that were on public assistance. We actually have tenants and staff that remember those days and say you walk through with dirty drugs everywhere, guns, prostitution. And now we serve over 300 formerly homeless, low-income men and women, many of whom struggle with mental illness, addiction, AIDS, and they pay 30% of their income towards rent, and the government subsidizes the remaining amount.
When it was first constructed and thought out, people thought we were probably thinking out of the box a little too far, but I think it really does work. It helps folks that are really just trying to get started again to see folks that are already in a different space and are going back to work and taking their lives back. So there's a lot of inner support, and it's nice to see.
It's a big project. 300 units is a big project. Certainly Project Renewal's biggest one. And we've learned, and now we really feel like we can handle almost any obstacle. I think unfortunately many people have an image of the homeless or people who struggle with addiction or mental illness. They have them put into some kind of box of how they see people, and it's not true, you know, it's not true. You really see what can happen when you give someone a home. I mean, that's what it's about. We give them a home. Without a home, no one can move forward in this world.
It's funny, and it's not explainable, really. Just as easy, any number of other things could have happened in my life, going any other different ways, a million for all of us. But I must say that I feel very lucky, you know, and almost blessed that it's worked out this well, you know. And I could also say, well, is this going to be the end of me, you know, in this little itty bitty room here? Is the glass half full, is the glass half empty? And the proper antidepressants actually keep it half full or all full.
Back in '83, when we were still growing, just developing, we got a contract, a small contract with the Public Development Corporation that has since become the Economic Development Corporation. We were given the assignment of clearing out the old Brooklyn Army Terminal. That was a very, very large contract at the time.
Without treatment, work won't last. Invariably there comes a whole kind of a change in mindset, and invariably relapse will occur. So we encourage, when a person goes into work, he's also encouraged to stay in treatment.
Substance abusers, mentally ill, chronically homeless, haven't worked ever, or haven't worked for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, cognitive impairments, no work references, criminal history, and we got to go put them to work in a competitive job where they're up against kids who are graduating from high school who have none of those things and are competing for the same jobs, or even college or community colleges. It's really hard to get them into jobs when you start with those barriers. They face not just 1 or 2 barriers to employment. These guys face multiple barriers to employment. But you know what? It's totally overcomable, and it is. Last year, we made 335 job placements in competitive employment of precisely the type of people I'm talking about. It's all about helping them overcome what they have been. It's about helping them move off the streets and not be homeless. It's about helping them get their substance abuse under control so they're not actively using. It's about helping them stabilize themselves with their mental health so they've got that under control. But it's always about becoming something that they weren't, not being homeless, not being an active substance abuser, not being overwhelmed by their mental illness. When they hit our door at Next Step, it's remarkable to see it, because it's the first time about becoming something rather than becoming something they aren't. It's the first time they're moving, instead of away from something, towards something. And for many of them, they've never had that. They've never had the chance to actually move towards something.
Well, I heard about Project Renewal through Barry Roth, who was the deputy director here back in maybe 86, 87, so on. And I used to work at an agency, Altro, and I was looking for part-time employment, actually. And he actually told me about Project Renewal. It was then called Manhattan Bowery at the time. And so when I came down and I interviewed with Susan Dan, I liked what was being said about going into the shelters, and I felt like I could identify in terms of helping women to become more powerful. And so that's how I got started. Prior to that, I might have had one person on a caseload when I used to work in a rehab agency that might have not been housed. So I never really knew about homelessness. I didn't learn about it in school. I didn't learn anything about that. So when I came here to know that this was what the agency was focused on, it opened up my eyes to the fact that there are people who are living on the streets who are in need of a place to lay their heads. And it was really, it was inspiring to me that there was an agency that was focused on that particular level of care that was needed.
My name is Joseph Small. I'm a former client of Manhattan Bowery when I came. That was 16 years ago. It's now Project Renewal. And through the grace of God, and a man named Geffner and Mr. Talbot, they saved my life 16 years ago, took me out the street, gave me a job, gave me a new way of life.
It's a 200-bed building with men that are mentally ill. We use who we are. That's how we engage with the folks here. We meet them, we greet them, we are respectful. And our key element of helping these men to realize who they are is one of respect. And so when a person feels that they can actually look at you and that you're saying good morning to them, you're saying how are you doing, you're calling them by their names if they give you permission to call them by their first name, it bridges a gap. We find that many of the men who come to us, this is the first time somebody's being courteous to them. This is the first time someone is looking at them as if they're a human being. Many of them come in full of shame and different things that have been going on in their life. And our job is really not to judge. Our job is to help them do better if they're able.
The program has been in operation for 10 years. The city is owned by the Department of Homeless Services, and we operate 2 programs out of this shelter. One is our transitional living community for women that are mentally ill, and the second program is our modified therapeutic community, which is for women that are struggling with substance abuse. It's a 130-bed shelter. We provide meals, 3 meals a day. We have medical services, psychiatric services, and then our clinical team.
And we are very successful, I believe. We've housed a lot of women. We have a lot of great success stories. And I've had the lovely pleasure of seeing many of them come back. I still get phone calls from women who've been gone for 8 years. We have one person who comes back and continually gives back to the women here. Having been my client now, she'll call me and say, we want to take the women out to a function or to a parade or to a workshop, and she'll come back and she'll, you know, facilitate that. So I've got a lot of rewards in this for me. I've seen a lot of women do.
What I enjoy the most and what I feel so good about is the placements that we do. You know, in 2007 we met our target, which was 106 placements within that year, and we did 119. And just the fact that, you know, we're placing folks back out into the community, you know, as soon as they're coming in through the door and being referred to us, we're getting them assessed and trying to stabilize, because it is a tough population to work with. But we get them stabilized and move them right back into the community, where we hope that they sustain and be able to, you know, still prosper in their housing placement.
My name is Janelle Hammond. I'm the program coordinator here at Project Renewal Safe Haven. Project Renewal Safe Haven is a transitional housing program which offers daytime and overnight services for both men and women who are homeless. During the 10 years that we've been open, we've had an overwhelming success in providing hope by healing lives through moral support, guidance, and the caring attitudes of all the staff.
Sometimes, you know, people have expectations. They think that, you know, some shelters are not safe, and I think with this environment, it's very relaxed, safe, you know.
It's more individual, one-on-one. There's more supervision. There's 24-hour staff. But it's different from regular shelters, I think. Because this is smaller, I think it makes it kind of unique.
And we really, you know, try to interact with people in a way that I feel is kind of natural. You know, it's not trying not to be so officious or you know, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Mental health is important, and they focus on that, and hopefully can let like the so-called normal population know that, you know, we're viable. We can live in the city with them and nothing's going to happen.
Folks have been able to come here and get the support that they need and just realize that their dreams can come true and that they can get jobs, get housing, and live very, very independently in the community.
Canton Hall began in 2001, and it was started as a transitional housing program, and then it eventually moved over into the shelter population. It's a 100-bed shelter for individuals in the shelter system who are on methadone. The New York 3 housing has been a great asset for our clients here, especially for individuals who go off to treatment and are staying clean and sober. It's a great option for us to do their housing package, get them out to a scattered site apartment. We've had about 6 guys move out through that and about 6 approvals who are still waiting to move out through that. And that's also a housing program we utilize for our gentlemen in transitional housing.
I'll be going into my very own studio apartment. I'll be leaving the shelter system and hopefully beginning life.
I also manage the Project Renewal Methadone Transitional Housing Program, which is 12 scattered site apartments up in Harlem, and they live with a roommate. They share the common area, the bathroom, the kitchen, and the living room. They have to be on methadone. They have to be enrolled in an outpatient program, and there's a case manager that does monthly home visits in a group down here at Kenton Hall once a month, just to touch base with the clients and see how they're doing.
It's not just, you know, removing yourself from the shelter system and then going into an apartment and then that's it. That you're on your own, because I don't think that's going to work. It's continuing the treatment, continuing to meet with my psych, continue to meet with my therapist, continue outpatient, continue all these supports that got me to where I'm at here.
Parole Support and Treatment Program. Essentially what it is, it's a program that offers scattered site housing for men and women being released from New York State correctional facilities who happen to have a history of severe and persistent mental illness.
I had nothing, man. I'm not saying that because I'm here. I'm saying because it's the truth. You know, I'm smoking crack with a collapsed lung, walking the streets, pushing a shopping cart, collecting soda cans out the garbage can. It's completely different now. My life is completely different.
We deal with people, various criminal offenses, various levels of functioning. And again, you know, our goal is to basically connect them to whatever services they'll need.